Hello and welcome to the Tar Heel Teachers Book Club. I'm Marlo Artist. The Tar Heel Teachers Book Club is our monthly opportunity to discuss great books. Each month we are joined by a wonderful panel of North Carolina educators who love dissecting great texts. We'll start our introductions with our friend from Alamance County.
Hello, I'm Kelly Poquette. I'm the 2021 Burroughs Welcome Fund Piedmont Triad Region Teacher of the Year and K-5 Music Educator at Alamance Virtual School. Please follow me and join me on Twitter at KA Poquette.
Hi, I'm Pamela Sands. I am from Cumberland County Schools and work for IT Media Services as a digital learning facilitator. And I'm a two-time Cumberland County Schools Media Coordinator of the Year and two times NCSLMA Media Coordinator of the Year. You can find me on Twitter at LivingPamtastic.
Hi, my name is Amy Tart. I'm a fourth grade ELA and social studies teacher for Clinton City Schools. You can find me on Twitter at Cards for Scholars.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Arisha Smalls, and I'm the Elementary AIG Program Specialist for Cumberland County Schools, and you can follow me on Twitter at Smalls Arisha.
Great. Our August 2021 Tar Heel Teachers Book Club selection is Love, Sugar, Magic, A Dash of Trouble by Anna Meriano. Be sure to share your thoughts on Twitter by using our hashtag THT Book Club. Love, Sugar, Magic, A Dash of Trouble is the first book in the series. It tells the story of Leonora Legrano, whose family owns the most beloved bakery in Rose Hill, Texas. Through a little snooping, Leo finds out that her mama, hermanas, and tia are bacon brujas, witches of Mexican ancestry. When she discovers this secret, that's when the fun begins. So what are your thoughts about Love, Sugar, Magic, A Dash of Trouble?
Oh, I'm waiting. I want to hear first.
Okay,
I love it. It's one, I say this every month, but it's I think it's my new favorite. I don't know. I think it's mainly because a lot of our students that I have come from Hispanic descent. So I think it was such a fun read. I spent a lot of times looking at the pictures of the different baking items and then being hungry.
So I did this as an audiobook, and I was really thankful that I did because the pronunciations and the woman who read it was brilliant.
Great.
Oh, right. Like the voices were so distinct for each character, and it really brought the story to life. So that was just so fun.
Come on, Arisha.
Through audio. I did it through audio also, part audio and part paperback, because I listen to it, and then when I get to something real good, I have to go back to my book and like try to find it and highlight it. I really enjoyed the book. I did appreciate the narrator because there were some vocabulary words that I know that I would have screwed up on my own. But I really did enjoy it. And I think that it was a very unique and interesting way to show kids cultures. And it was very I don't know how to say it. It wasn't like in your face. You just felt like part of the family. It wasn't like, oh, now we're learning about this, now we're learning about that. It just felt like you were immersed in it, like you were the sixth sister.
Well, I read it traditional, from the paperback book. And so I don't know that the pronunciations in my head were always accurate, but I did sit here with like my Google Translate on my phone so I could just skim over the page and see what some of these things meant, especially in the recipes and things. But it was a really cute story.
Yes, it really was very cute. And, it's okay, Pam, I also didn't read it through the audiobook. So it's okay if we didn't get the Spanish right, because Leo herself, she also was learning Spanish. And I thought that was a great touch. And I love that in order for her to really come into her own with her magic, she had to learn more Spanish or get some assistance with the Spanish. I thought that was a really smart touch.
I love the relationship.
Oh, sorry.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say the word I couldn't think of was authentic. I was getting an authentic experience. Like I was experiencing it firsthand, and not, even though, yes, it's storytelling, but you really felt part of it. And I really enjoyed that.
I think so too. I think it had a really good, like, natural progression throughout this story, and it flowed beautifully. I was going to say that I also really liked the relationship between the sisters. They kind of all had their special gifts, but they also had a special different personality that really brought them together in a fun way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was a little surprised, though, that Leo didn't know more Spanish. And I realized, it said that her abuela wasn't there when she was younger, like she had been for her other sisters. But like her twin sisters were only a couple years older than she was. And it just really surprised me that like she just kind of slipped under without having picked up a lot of the language growing up.
Well, one thing that they benefited from was the fact that they had a teacher who taught them. So the other girls, the older girls, were taught by abuela, and then they were taught by their Spanish teacher. And I've worked at a school where we had Mr. Flores for a couple of years, and then we cut the program. And so, unfortunately, this happens sometimes. And so she kind of got, kind of slipped through the cracks in terms of learning it. But it was such a great plot twist in terms of being able to drive the plot forward, because she didn't know it, but she really needed it. I mean, because even those flying pigs that she did with her first spell, they understood Spanish.
But it was very clever, like you said, Marlo, that she didn't know, because a lot of readers may not know Spanish when they are starting to read this book. And it was a way to give you all the context clues you needed. Like they went back and told you what some things were along the way. But also, I think it was clever because it reminds us how important language is to culture. Like those things are tied together. They're almost one and the same. And how she couldn't really be one with her culture until she became one with her language.
And I think it's generational too. I think we have some of our students who are from Latinx descent, but who are born here in America, that some of them don't speak Spanish, but their family does. And so it's like, really, how do you have that particular divergent experience, even in the same family?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it gave a really good opportunity for Caroline to play a really important role, in that she knew she could read the Spanish, she could read the recipe book.
Now, if y'all had
do we know Caroline's background? Because maybe I missed it. I know that Caroline was helping her with the Spanish and that she could read Spanish better than Leo, but what is her background?
well, their name was Campbell. It was Campbell.
Was
That
her
doesn't
mother,
mean anything.
was her
I don't
mother
remember.
Hispanic or from Mexico?
Maybe.
Maybe so.
Maybe.
That might, oh, well, I'll have to find out, because I think that was my thing. Like, oh, okay, that's why she might know some Spanish. I think it was her mother, but I'm not positive.
Maybe.
Wait,
I missed
did it
that.
say anything about her speaking to a grandparent in Spanish? Was that included, where she had a grandparent that she talked on the phone? You remember that,
Wasn't
Kelly?
it Puerto Rico? Like, it was
Yeah.
one of the, yeah, I think it was Puerto Rico.
So that's part of it. So
Okay.
it might be what you're saying about the mom, that she may have some people in her family who speak
Okay.
Spanish,
I
and why
couldn't
she knows
remember.
it. Now,
Yeah.
speaking of Caroline, if you had special powers, and we can talk about that in a moment, would you tell your best friend the way that she told Caroline? Because like Caroline, I knew she was going to tell her, but I was thinking to myself, like, if I had special powers, would I tell people that I know?
Your best friend, yeah.
No, I feel like her sisters probably haven't told anybody outside of the family.
That's
And I don't think the mom was really spreading it around outside, the family and the people who were in the know. And so I was kind of like, what are you doing? You're not supposed to say anything.
I don't think I would tell. And I agree with you. Like I don't think I would tell. But also, you think the other girls the other girls had each other.
yeah.
So when they came into it, there were people in front of them that already had it and were aware of it, and they could talk about it. But she found out before it was time. So she didn't want to talk about it with the people in her family, because that's closer to trouble. Like, let me tell somebody outside the family who's, not going to get me caught up, but she got into her own trouble.
You got really caught up with her.
she got herself caught up. Yeah.
She was trying to help. And I also thought it was so interesting at the beginning, because she, again, they talk about the age and wanting to make sure that you're mature enough to handle that responsibility. At the beginning, she wanted to use her powers for revenge. against Brent.
Let's talk about
Can
these
we talk
characters.
about this?
Yes, let's talk about these characters.
Little boy,
Well,
the little boy.
I don't know if
The
I want to
little-
go with Brent or
little.
Caroline first, but I was a little baffled when Caroline got on the bus and Leo was surprised to see her. Like, she didn't even know that Caroline was back and this was her best friend. And then Caroline said, like, that Brent had been coming over every single day and keeping her company. And it sounded like she had been back for a while. And I'm like, what was the deal with that? And they fell right back into their friendship. And right away, you know, Leo shares her secret with her. But I'm like, but like, Caroline disappeared on you. Like, I get that she went through a lot and, you know, had a lot going on, but she didn't even tell you that she came back. And Brent was the one who was keeping her company, not her best friend.
So she's not your favorite character.
Like, I liked her. I liked her as a character, but I kind of thought like that was a little odd. Like, I feel like if I had gone through something traumatic, like losing my mom, and I had been away and I had moved back, like the first thing I would want to do would be like to reach out and have my best friend, you know, with me. And
I think that she, in Caroline's defense, I think that she was trying, you know me, I'm always trying to think of the other side.
And that's important because she's not here to defend herself.
I would defend Caroline. I think it was kind of like a gray area where Caroline really wasn't up to seeing anybody and having visitors. And then Leo was a little bit hesitant to reach out and kind of force herself on her. And Brent, being the next door neighbor, he didn't really care if you want, you know how some people are, they don't care if you want to see them or not. They're going to come over because they know that you need the company or they just want to, you know, be there or whatever. So I think it was a little bit of a gray thing. And it was kind of covered in the book a little bit and kind of made us think about it. Because, you know, when somebody dies, sometimes it's hard for us to figure out how to navigate that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I lost my dad at around the same age that the characters are. And I can definitely identify with the feeling of, you know, you kind of want your own space, but then there might be some people that they're not your best friend, but you may seek comfort in them more ways than, you know, someone that knew the parent that passed away and have more connections with. But yeah, I also think though that Brent and Leo was both like important to Caroline's story in different ways, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I love Brent. I'm just gonna
His
put it.
accent was hilarious.
Oh my
in the-
word. Oh my word. And I just love how he's like, oh, I'm small now. Like, it's just like, this isn't that big of a deal. I mean, it's going to resolve itself, apparently. And then when he was in love with everyone, oh my word. It was just like, he's the beautiful comic relief
Mhm.
and such a different character.
I
okay,
did
why
not
is
like
he being
him.
such a jerk to Caroline?
I didn't
Like,
like him.
I know that she wrote that
Oh.
note. It made him feel a little funny, but like his reaction to that was very disproportionate to that. I really value your friendship. That
forgot
was in
about
the
that.
note. And I was like, whoa, like, where are you coming from?
Now, do you think he
But-
kind of got caught up with that in terms of he discovered the note kind of with other people around, and then you kind of got caught up in that
Oh, I think he was definitely
pressure?
trying to save face a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's that. If he would have got it separately, he probably would have responded differently. But sometimes, you know, especially kids get caught up in trying to impress
But when
folks.
he's confronted about it, he still doesn't like redeem himself. I feel like it was a missed opportunity. He never was like, my bad, homie. Like, he never came back around. Like, I don't know. He's not my favorite character.
Now
Middle
you're
school
making
boys,
me
though,
fun.
you know.
But
Any
it
grade
wasn't
level
even like
boys.
Caroline was professing her undying love for him or anything like that. She was just like, I really value you being here for me and you being around. And your friendship means a lot to me. And he went like completely AWOL.
And middle school
Mhm.
boys handle that kind of emotional sincerity well.
Some can,
Margot? Okay.
some can,
Some
but not
can. Okay.
not
Mhm.
most, but some can. It's a small
Yeah.
percentage that will be able to handle that and not really concerned. I do think I will say this: the more that I kind of hear about this generation that's coming up and things, I think more and more, I think that number will increase because just people just seem to be more accepting of others and accepting of their
Mhm.
feelings and that type of thing. So I think we'll start to see a trend in that direction.
I think that might have to do with all the SEL lessons and learning that we're starting in elementary school and bringing on up too.
Yes.
But I did love their idea for the snack club. It reminded me of some special people I used to work with and our lunch bunches together, and bring treats and share with our coworkers and friends. And
I didn't like the lies, how it just came right out of a lie. Like they're trying to do all this hiding and really not letting people know what's going on. And like the lies are just falling out. And the snack club was a big fat lie. I was glad it came into fruition and that everybody pretty much enjoyed it. It was a good thing for the school. As a germaphobe, though, I was thinking like, I don't want some of the stuff these kids are bringing.
But they're kids eating kid stuff. So like, you're not
It was
thinking
not
about
in
that.
COVID times.
But
Hey,
even
man, I don't care
before,
what time it is. It's my stomach.
even before, but I'm just saying, like, it's kids eating kid things. Like, you're not thinking about that. Somebody brings Pringles or whatever it is, everybody's hand is down in that thing. When you're that age. Well, Brent is my least favorite character. And surprisingly, this month for our book club, I do not have a favorite character.
What?
Really?
At all. At all. I don't have anybody that like I was really attached to. I think everybody played their part and I was okay with everybody's part, but I didn't have anybody that was like, oh,
you weren't
that's
like
my
attached to
person.
either the twins or to her mommy.
No,
Like,
I really
feel
like the grandma
twins,
actually.
Yeah, I really
like the grandma.
But I feel like the twins were always supportive and always positive. Like they were never negative.
They were a little self-serving though, because with those love bites, they wanted to know if she could use that with the boys that they wanted. So that was interesting.
Yeah.
But listen to this though. Isn't it funny how the love bites was a play on words? Because it's like love bites, like bites you back. So I thought that was very interesting. I did appreciate the twins, especially when they did one of them did the diversion for the mom when, she was trying to catch.
That was Marisol.
I thought that was one of the twins that did that.
No, ma'am.
Well, fix me.
It was Marisol. She did a great job with it.
Oh.
She turned on the tears.
No, she knew second. No. She knew second. Isabel knew first.
Yeah, Isabel's first, Marisol second.
Yeah.
But she did that whole fanatic, like,
are y'all sure?
Meltdown.
Arisha, yes, we just told you. Yes, we're very sure.
Okay.
We know this book.
Well, see,
now,
then the twins are going back to not being my favorite.
What I thought was interesting, though, about Marisol, I loved that Anna included a character who was a little bit nervous and hesitant about her special ability. Because I know a lot of people who are highly gifted in areas, and sometimes it really scares them because there's a lot of pressure or it separates them from other people. It's a big responsibility. So I love that was included. And I love that we had Isabel on the other side who was really embracing it, wanting to learn more. It was just a good balance of how people approach different things in different ways.
Yeah.
One thing I wondered through that, kind of since we're talking about that scene or that event when they were trying to fix it, when the twins were calling on the grandma because they couldn't find her kind of around, but they had said earlier that it was much easier for them to communicate with her than to kind of channel her. So once they kind of found her, I kept thinking like, okay, just tell her to like, hey, I need you to stick around and communicate with me and observe instead of like draining them trying to channel her so much.
Now you've seen Bewitched. Now sometimes Endora, Serena, all them, Uncle Arthur, they got other stuff to do now. They're not just sitting around waiting for you to channel them and engage them. Now come on now, Pam, you know this.
But I'm saying once they contacted her and communicated with her, like why weren't they just like, we need you to be here where it's easier for us to communicate with you to help us through this rather than trying to like channel her.
But they're also still learning.
Yeah.
And I think Abuela too is a little bit like, you got yourself into this, like you've learned the magic, you knew you weren't supposed to try it yet, now here you are.
And you know what else I thought was interesting that Abuela said? When she's like, are you speaking to me in English or something like that? And she's like, girl, I learned lots of things, you know, since
You're
I've been
learning.
gone. Yes,
Mhm.
I thought that was cute when she said that. Of
That
course,
was
not
cute.
the way I said it, but that's how I took it.
Now, what power would you select if you actually had to have one of the powers? Which one would you actually want and
Okay,
why?
can we review them? Like Isabel
Yes,
had, she
Yeah.
could
She can make you
people's,
feel
it should make you feel things.
influence.
influence,
And Marisol could like make things appear. And then, what
manifest,
else?
yeah,
The twins could channel people.
They
channel
could, yep,
people.
they could
Okay,
commune with spirit.
And
and it was
then
based
Leo
on your
was the
unknown.
unknown.
She's
Yeah.
unknown.
And the mom was able to make things appear too, like
Mhm.
Marisol.
Except
The
for
second
the
one.
Day of the Dead,
I thought
though.
Marisol had influence and Isabel
No,
could conjure.
no,
Mm-mm.
no.
They're reversed. Okay.
Reverse, yeah.
But this is the
Yeah.
thing. This is the thing about the manifesting with the mama. If she could manifest all this stuff, I'm going to say she was kind of like Samantha, where she didn't want to use her powers all the time. Why you kept calling the daddy, asking him to bring all this stuff to the Day of the Dead? Why you ain't manifested?
Never thought about
She's
that.
not being greedy
She's
and
trying to live
someone
her
missing.
regular life.
She was.
She was living her regular life.
But when I found out she could manifest, I'm like, girl, come on now. Had your husband running all over trying to get this stuff. But which one would y'all choose, though?
Influence.
Influence.
I would want to pick conjure, but ooh, that's so dangerous.
Influence would make our lives as teachers a lot easier sometimes. Because we know we influence maybe in the long run, but sometimes I need to influence like in the now.
It'll make marriage easier too.
That is a good point. You see?
I think the twins' power would be the hardest.
Agreed.
Gosh,
Always
yes.
I don't want
Oh,
that one.
yeah.
Those who passed around you and having people always calling on you to connect with people. I think that would be very hard, but
That'd be draining.
I take it back. I don't want to influence because I think I feel like I don't know if I would abuse it. So I don't want to influence.
I would want to
I take
manifest.
the manifest. I've been saying conjuring objects, but I think I would want to manifest. I would take
too.
that.
What would you manifest?
A lot of stuff.
Not the money, just the stuff that the
But
money
didn't they
can give
say
me.
it was only like small objects, like small
Right
like
now she can
things?
only do small objects.
Yeah, she's young.
So
So
if I could conjure, could I find my phone every time I lose it? Like, can it help you find things you lost? Instead, I don't need a new phone every time. I just want the same one that I put in places I don't
you gotta
remember.
get an Apple Watch and you can just ding it.
I never thought about that.
You can
I already
manifest.
have that magic power.
So Apple Watches are magic is really the conclusion.
Yes,
The if then.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
You talk about characters. Now, I do want to bring this up because you're talking about characters that you didn't have any favorite characters. I had a least favorite character. My least favorite character was a small character in the book, but she really upset me. Mrs. Wood. Do y'all know why she upset me?
What?
This woman did not even know that her student had left the school and was not in the class
yeah.
and spoke with everybody else.
For the whole day.
The whole exact day. You never noticed. Her name will change from Miss Wood to Miss Wood. You sign this right up because you get a discipline action.
You always have like this special bond with the teachers.
Mhm.
You always go
know.
for the teachers.
He's
But you're
That's why I
right.
was
She was
upset with
gone all
her.
day. She was gone all day.
Wait a minute. Do you mean when they had the party for the Dia de los Muertos? Is that what? When
This
she
is
was
it. No,
gone?
this was Halloween.
When she
This was
snuck
Halloween.
away.
When they
She
went in their
left in the
costumes.
afternoon. She stayed for
No.
the morning and then she left for the afternoon party, right? Like as they were walking to the party in their costumes in the afternoon. Then she snuck away. So she stayed there the whole morning, but then she left right before the party, I thought. So she was only missing during party time.
But
But
still,
still,
It's
she
still
didn't
school
even know she was
hours.
gone.
yeah, that's true. It's true.
If you got kids who are missing, you on my bad list. If you don't know the kid's gone, you just gotta be on my bad list. Another person who's not quite on my bad list, but maybe go, girl, come on now. Whenever Caroline and Leo called Mrs. Bayman, Brent's mom, and was like, "Where is Brent?" and she started hollering and screaming in the background, girl, why didn't you just call them back? You should have called them back. They did not have the number.
I did kind of wonder, like, how Brett was able, like, how are they able to keep him for so long? Like, wouldn't missing persons, like, they would be going, like, to, right? Like, it just felt a little bit, but I'm also like, but this is, the willing suspension of disbelief here. Let's just kind of flow with it.
I mean, they did shrink him down to 5 inches.
That is fair.
And he was drowning in a jar of honey. Like,
Yeah.
Now, every time I listen to my true crime, I'm going to be like, I know where they're at. Check the jars.
I'm just saying. And then he took up residence in a dollhouse.
Yeah.
And was very comfortable there. And then when the twins came in, they gonna just give him that little finger to greet him. Like, this is not normal. And they act like it was
No,
normal.
it's not. They're not even moved by it.
It was a really interesting. Any other items that were really, top of mind?
Go
ahead, Kelly.
I like how when at the very end, when Leo, when she was coming in, like she had to pay her dues. Like she had to go back, okay, you're gonna run the cash register. And like she had to start from base one and not she didn't get any kind of elevated status or like faster track. I appreciated that.
And you know what I also like around that time in terms of paying her dues? That scene with her mom in the bakery, you know what that reminded me of? When she had to go to the bakery, it was real late, it was real quiet. That was Mufasa and Simba after he went to that elephant graveyard. Y'all remember that part?
Where I remember the part, but I want you to keep talking.
As he disappointed his daddy, it was the same tone where they had to ride in silence. The mama normally does all this chit chat and everything, talking, filling the gaps. She's trying to process and think through what she did wrong, and which is good when parents give children time to kind of reflect on their own. So that's all I kept saying, like, this is what happened with Mufasa and Simba when he disappointed his daddy.
Well, with the ancestors, I kept thinking of like Mulan, like when they got the answer, like whenever they was.
The quote that I like that was kind of towards the end is when Leo was asking, what does it mean to be a bruja? And her mom says, that's like asking what it means to be a Texan or a girl or curly haired. It doesn't mean anything by itself. It's a part of you. And then you decide what it means. And I think that's just across the board good for everybody. Like that's good news for everybody, that all the things that make you decide how you want to use them. And you decide what it means. And I thought that was so powerful.
Really, really great story. I'm really glad that we were able to feature Love, Sugar, Magic, A Dash of Trouble as our August 2021 Tar Heel Teachers Book Club selection. When we return, we're going to be joined by the author of this great book, Anna Meriano joins us in just a moment. We'll be right back.
Interested in more Tar Heel Teachers content? Be sure to check out Tar Heel Teachers Daily, delivering daily NC education news in a bite-sized format. You can check out both new and old episodes on our YouTube channel.
We are back on the Tar Heel Teachers Book Club, and we're now being joined by Anna Meriano, who is the author of this delicious book, Love, Sugar, Magic, A Dash of Trouble. Anna, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
So excited to talk about this book. We just had a really great conversation about all the things that we love and all the wonderful different nuances of the book. So Anna, how did you come up with this particular story? I love that we have a Mexican-American family that's centered in a fantasy. We don't get that every single day. So tell us how you came up with that concept.
So this is actually a cool story. I worked with Cake Literary, a packaging company, on the concept of this whole series. So Danielle Clayton and Sona Charapotra, who are mostly YA authors in their own right, have formed this company where they are trying to get more diverse fantasy kind of on the shelves, especially for kids. And I think especially middle grade. They've done, they're doing YA as well. But Cake Literary has a lot of middle grade books like Tristan Strong Punches a Hole in the Sky. I've literally blanked on every other Cake book. Oh, The Gauntlet by Karina Riazi. Other books that exist, and my brain is not working right now. But so actually the original concept of this as a series, wanting to see this bakery with the brujas and set in Texas with Mexican American family, was not mine. It was Danielle and Sona's, and it was just a super cool kind of, one of those serendipitous moments where they came to my school for an alumni event. They graduated from the New School Writing for Children program, and I was in that program. And we were having kind of like one of those awkward parties where you eat cheese, or at least I eat cheese in the corner. And one of my friends was talking to, one of my friends was talking to Danielle and Sona, and they mentioned that they had been looking for a writer who was Texan, Mexican American. And my friend was like, hold that thought, dragged me over here, please meet these people. And we started talking about the series, and I really loved working with Cake Literary because it was such a very collaborative process. From that very first lunch, we were kind of throwing ideas back and forth about how we would flesh out these characters, how we would get this this kind of concept off the ground. And then as I continued to the series, book 2 and book 3, we were working very collaboratively on the concepts and the plot lines and the outlines of those books. So yeah, it's kind of unusual. I think a lot of times, we think of writers getting struck with inspiration magically, working in a very solitary way, at least for the first draft of a book, and then you start bringing more people in. But for me, it was a collaborative process from the very beginning, and I was just very excited about it. Yeah, sorry.
Very exciting. You all had the right mix of people, honey. Y'all put that recipe together and did a great job. I mean, fantastic.
I know, I love it.
While you're talking about recipes, I was curious, did you come up with all of the recipes and the kind of ideas for the different types of baked goods in the story? Or is there some history throughout folklore and Latinx communities with some of these good luck breads or cookies and things like that?
So a lot of the, especially again in the first book, a lot of the baked goods I think came from Danielle mostly. She wrote the recipes in the back, and she's a bit more of a baker. I like to tell people that I do not bake at all. I really loved researching for these books, especially because it meant I got to go to all the panaderias around me, which was just a great time. But yeah, a lot of those times when Leo is talking to her classmates, and Leo's thinking like, huh, my classmates, they don't even know how to crack an egg one-handed, or she has these sort of little, that's me, I'm the classmate.
I'm the classmate too.
Yeah, no, I can make, well, now I don't even, because now Pillsbury gives you cookie dough that you can eat straight out of the tub. So, but I can make that. No, but I do think that a lot of the recipes are, a lot of the baked goods from the bakery are based on the things that you see, that you just sort of, you walk into a panaderia and you see these certain types of things. And then the magical element is often just created. I think Danielle used some folklore stuff when she was putting it all together. When I got to book 3 especially, I was looking into, and 2 as well, I was looking into some ways that candles were used in, everyone has different traditions and different stuff going on. So it's, when you're researching, you kind of have to at some point decide okay, there's multiple ways to do this. I'm going to just pick one, or sometimes I'm just going to make one up. And Zoraida Cordova talks about this, I think, better than I do. How she has gotten asked about, oh, tell me about the Ecuadorian magic from your book. And she's like, no, that's fantasy. I made that up. Those aren't real things. And I did have that experience a bit with book 3 where I invented this idea that you could kind of trade spice properties, mostly because I was like, you're really limited in what you can put together when you're baking, because some things just won't taste good together. But I was finding these sort of magical properties of certain herbs and spices that I thought were cool. So I just wanted Leo to have a chance to mix it up. I wanted her to have a chance to use the molcajete. And so I made up this idea that you could transfer the properties of one spice to another. And I had someone ask about that as a folkloric or traditional thing. And I had to be like, no, I made it up actually. But I mean, I do think that the basic principles, love spells, luck spells, those are the kinds of things that people, have their own versions of in a lot of different cultures and a lot of different traditions of brujeria or magic or that sort of thing. So yeah, well, putting our own spin on it.
I wanted to ask you a question about the collaborative process that you were talking about earlier. And I'm just really curious to know how you got paired with Muriel Ortega, your illustrator, because her art is beautiful. The covers of your book
Stunning.
are
Stunning.
beautiful. And she's also a Mexican American. Am I correct?
Uh,
So was that?
Yeah, she's
She's in
actually from
Mexico.
Mexico.
Oh,
She
she
Mexico
lives
City.
okay.
yeah, she lives in the States now, but she's from Veracruz. If I'm wrong, I'm so
Okay.
sorry.
No. Well,
To
thank
her,
you for
but
correcting
yeah.
me. So was that intentional to have these strong Latino women creating this project, or was it just by chance it was a story, you loved her art? Like, how did that come about?
That is another great story, actually. So we had gone in, with Cake. We had sold the project actually as 2 books at least, and we were starting to talk with HarperCollins. It's actually Walden Pond Press, about like what we were thinking for the cover, and gave them some photos or some images, some Pinterest boards, and they came back with a couple of suggested illustrators who were doing cool things. We had like little things we weren't in love with, like, oh, it looks a little bit more babyish than we were thinking, or this looks a little, Disney princess or whatever. But then Danielle and Sona and I all got together. We were talking about kind of like, well, what doesn't feel quite right about it? Or what do we think that one of these artists could rise to the occasion, even if we're not happy with like their samples that we're looking at? And we all just at some point kind of went like, did you notice that they, at least from what we can tell, we're not trying to make assumptions. We Googled a few of them. Did you notice that they're all white? Do we think it's worth bringing that up? Do we think it's worth asking if they had considered, or if they would consider tapping in some Latinx illustrators? And so they were just, it was great that I had Danielle and Sona there, because that was the sort of thing that as a really, really newbie debut author, I probably wouldn't have felt confident enough to go and ask for. But Danielle and Sona were like, yeah, sure. They sent off that email really fast, like, hey, did you think of any Latinx people? And my editor came back to me almost immediately and was like, oh, yeah, that's a great idea. We don't have any. We're open to your suggestions. Which again, that's just sort of what happens in industries. People just go with the faces that they've known and the faces that they've worked with before. So that was a really like cool, but also very intimidating opportunity, because again, very newbie author. I had never really done any of this. I didn't know cover illustrators. And I actually went on Twitter and I searched the Latinx's Create hashtag, which I think is still going. It's a really great hashtag. And I don't know, they have like certain days where everyone is tweeting out their art. And I was scrolling through and I was looking at people's art that I liked, and I picked about 3 people who had illustration on their websites. Muriel happens to have done a sample cover of a couple of books, I think like The Secret Garden and like some other book that she really liked. And so I just sent that in, and they were luckily able to contact her. She was able to get involved in it. Eventually we were able to meet up because she lived in LA for a while. And she's just really great. She's a great artist. She's a really, really cool animator, actually. So I'm really, hoping that she gets some shows out there soon. She's got her own book coming out now.
Saw that.
Yeah, I saw
Which
that
I
too.
think it changed the title, or I forgot the title. I should look it up right now. But she has a picture
Something
book coming out.
magic, right?
Say it again.
I think it's something magic.
It is magic. It is called magic, isn't it?
Yeah. And she's illustrated a whole bunch of other books as well. I'm looking at, I know she did Pepe's Parade, From the Desk of Zoe Washington. She did the cover of that one as well. I think maybe, yes, the picture book is called Magic. Yeah, she's got a lot of great stuff coming. So that was really, really cool that we were able to, just kind of loop her into, again, this industry that like just hadn't thought of or had never put the effort into getting a Mexican artist or a Latinx artist. And now, there are more great people doing great cover illustrations. And there has been a lot of great activism in the kidlit spaces from We Need Diverse Books or from other people to kind of remind everyone to like bring in people of color at all stages of the process. So, Mirel is not by any means alone in doing this really cool work, but yeah.
So Anna, I was wondering, so Caroline, her mother passed earlier in the book, but before we meet her. Why was it important to have her mother pass as part of the storyline?
That's an interesting question.
I had the same exact question.
Yeah, I mean, because, and my brain immediately goes, oh, because in book 2, but we didn't really have that when it started. I think it was just sort of like several things converging, because I know originally Caroline was new in town. She was not like an old friend of Leo's. And so I think we were thinking of reasons why they would have just moved to this small town, and we were thinking that maybe she was reconnecting with family there. And then that got scrapped. And so she just ended up being, why would they have been, if she was an old friend, why would they have been disconnected? And we had already maybe had a single dad, and we decided, and I knew some people, I've known multiple people through my lifetime, especially because my brothers and I all went to a very small private elementary school. We knew people who came into town for the Houston hospitals, unfortunately, and they would come in for maybe a year or 2 years, or they'd come in for a year with a parent who was ill and then leave and then come back another, a year or 2 later. So that was, it's not one of the happy things about growing up in Houston, but it is like a reality of growing up in Houston. And so I think I had that idea of that she had left town to go to Houston to get the cancer treatment and then come back and was maybe a little disconnected. And Leo was still had a lot of that same. When I originally wrote it, she was trying to make a new friend and feeling awkward and not sure and wanting to do a lot to sort of just not feeling secure in their friendship and really wanting to like show off for Caroline or really wanting to like draw her in with this magic. And so I think once we decided they had that previous relationship, it made sense to use Caroline's grief as that sort of like block between them.
And as someone who, my dad died when I was in middle school, I like the way that was handled with Caroline, and that she was included in just her experience. I could really just relate to even, Mr. Campbell and how he was navigating through it. I thought was really well done throughout. So I was glad that was included.
Yeah.
I had a question. So I've taught about Day of the Dead sometimes with my students, but I enjoyed reading so much more about it in this book, and it gave me a lot of ideas. But I was wondering if you celebrate Day of the Dead personally, and if you had any specific trends or traditions with it that you enjoy.
So I didn't super celebrate it growing up. I was aware of it. I didn't have a lot of like family traditions involved with it. One of the really cool things that I was able to do when I started writing this book was go to Mexico, hang out with some of my friends from the Quidditch team in Mexico, and talk with them and some other people around, like family friends, about the way that they celebrated, which was different than, because growing up in Texas, my family didn't do anything particularly special other than sort of like, the Catholic awareness that it was like Day of the Dead is special, All Souls Day, All Saints Day, Halloween, they were all kind of together. So that was really cool to be able to talk to people who maybe had a bit more like, what is the word I'm looking for? Just a bit more visceral visual connection to it. And like, here, these are the things that we do. I got to hear the descriptions of like different days being for different types of people, or for the unborn babies, or for the adults, or for the children. And that's just a super cool experience and a super cool chance I got to do that. But then I also wanted, Rose Hill's Day of the Dead to be a little different from that. Again, a little more, I think sometimes in the US, we just have this like great desire to like hang on to traditions in a certain way that makes them a little bit different than they are in maybe the home country. I think of, St. Patrick's Day, Cinco de Mayo, which my family did celebrate, but we celebrated it kind of like tongue in cheek. And then as I got older and everyone was like, oh, real Mexicans or real Mexican Americans do not celebrate this. And I was like, oh, but like we did because it was fun though. So I kind of wanted to bring that in because I think that's a very like, Texan US way of experiencing your traditions and your heritage, or at least for me it is, of this sort of doing it a little bit consciously, or a little bit maybe even like performatively, but that doesn't make it less or bad. It just makes it like a way that you are actively trying to connect. So yeah, so that's why they put up the big festival, and it's for everyone, and you can come in and they'll teach you how to make little cardboard ofrendas. And that was important to me to have that in the Rose Hill celebration, because sometimes I want to be brought in and welcomed to a tradition, even if it's something that I have a connection to.
I have a question for you. So when I was reading, I was getting all these, I don't know, I was reminded of different shows. Like I was thinking of Wizards of Waverly Place, kind of meeting with Fairly Odd Parents, because the magic always kind of backfired a little bit. And then also a little bit of Elena of Avalor. And then the cover art, and she's, the illustrator is a graphic artist, digital designer, right? So will this become some kind of cartoon series? Because I'm getting those vibes.
I really, really hope so.
I really hope so too.
That's manifested. Manifest.
Yes. I really, really hope so. I know that Danielle and Sona have worked with making their other series, Tiny Pretty Things, into a TV show. So that's, giving me hope. I'm like, yes, okay, you did one, just do the other cake ones now. All of them. But no, I would love to see that. I'm a huge fan of, well, number one, all the great cartoons that we have, like for kids nowadays. I just feel like we're doing really great work in animation. But also like Wizards of Waverly Place was a show that meant a lot to me as, a biracial isn't right, bicultural family, Mexican American and Irish and German American family with like older brother, middle sister, much younger little brother. Like there was a lot going on in that show that I like connected to. So yeah.
That's great. This is really, really great text. And I'm really glad that we had a chance to speak with you. So the last question that I have, how did you come up with the birth order magic? So I thought it was so clever to give everybody that, and then to have the twist with the twins, and like you had to figure out how that was going to go. And then Leo having the extra twist on top of the twist. So how did you come up with that? Because that was really, really neat.
So I didn't come up with that original concept. I came in and they already had that sort of attached to the project. Danielle and Sona did. I think it was a great idea. Like that's one thing that I love to talk about at school visits or with kids who've read it or with adults who've read it, is like, okay, what's your birth order power, or which one would you want to have and which one do you actually have? I don't know where exactly they got it. I think it was just a cool idea. But I think there is a lot of like, the way that your birth order plays into your personality and the way that can affect your relationships. And I think that was part of how we were thinking about it, in terms of like the oldest sibling being able to manipulate people's emotions, that sort of thing. And then Leo being the sort of mystery wild card character was just something that I was given in the first book. And, immediately my brain wanted to like answer that question of like, well, why? And what does that mean for her? And how did it even happen if they've had generations and generations where this wasn't an issue? So that was actually, I think, one of the things I really enjoyed, again, about that collaborative process is I was actually given this mystery with no answer. Danielle and Sona didn't have an answer for that. They had just like written it because they thought it sounded cool. So I was working backwards a lot and deciding, why is Leo this wild card? What power is she going to get? Is she going to get a power at all? And kind of working through those questions in my head, finding the answers that I like headcanoned when I was writing book 1. Those turned out to be major plot points in book 3. But I had a long time to sort of let them percolate and think about them, because they were just background in book 1. And I think that's one of the cool things about working on a series, is how, like, if there's threads you didn't quite get to explore, there's things that are sort of stuck in the back of your head, especially when you're like building a whole fantasy system, then that becomes like something fruitful to explore in the later books.
Well, we certainly will explore the book and the series. Well, my last question, what would be your birth order power? We do have to ask you that, since you said you did it for school visits. What's yours?
Yes. Well, like in my birth order, I'm the middle child. I'm the second born. So I would have the Marisol power of manifesting tiny little objects. And I think that's the one that I would want. I don't trust myself with Isabel power. I would just be like, it would be like toxic positivity, like Ted Lasso, like everyone's happy all the time. No good. And the ghost thing would be kind of interesting, but I really like the idea of being able to just always have a pencil handy, always have whatever I need. That little like tiny, small but in unending dimensional pocket.
Yes, that's awesome. Well, Anna, thank you so much for joining us. We do appreciate it.
These were really great questions.
Awesome. To learn more about Anna and her work, please visit her website, AnnaMeriano.com. You can also follow her on Twitter. Her handle is Anna M is boring, but she's not boring at all. When we return, we'll discuss some instructional strategies if you want to teach love, sugar, magic, a dash of trouble with your students. We'll be right back. We are back on the Tar Heel Teachers Book Club, and now we're going to share some instructional strategies if you want to teach Love, Sugar, Magic, a Dash of Trouble by Anna Meriano with your students. What instructional strategy ideas do we have?
Okay, I felt a really strong SEL connection with this in so many different ways. Like how, okay, I said I love Brett, and then I kind of backtracked a little bit, but I still like him. And like how he went through the teenage angst of like dealing with the whole like romantic part that's coming out in like 7th and 8th grade. So like there's that kind of component, and there's the empathy with Caroline's mom passing, and then there's all the frustration that Leo has with feeling like she's left out and not part of the family. And there's just a lot of things to unpack in this book that I think they're so relatable to students. If you kind of need to say, okay, like which, not necessarily character, but like which situation did you relate to and why?
What I was thinking about was, and this is like one of my favorite moments in the book. I would love for kids to write the unraveling spells, the undo spell, because it forced you to think about opposites of things that you don't even think about having opposites. When she's talking about, okay, what's the opposite of honey? And then what she chooses and the reasons why. So it's almost like there is no wrong answer if you can give justification as to why that thing would be the opposite of something else, and how that would affect the overall spell. So I thought
was so clever with that too.
It was so clever. It was
Really
I
clever.
loved that.
Yeah, when they said like, "What's the opposite of honey?" I'm like, I don't like.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know what's it.
And
what
when she
is the
came up with
opposite?
molasses, I was like, oh, that's
Makes
so
sense.
good. Like, yeah, I would love to hear what kids came up with on that.
Mm-hmm.
That could be really neat.
I kind of came up with the idea for a project. So I think that food is important to every culture. I know it's personally very important to me. Food is my love language. So I thought it'd be a cool project to kind of have students maybe go home to their families and pick maybe a recipe or something that was really important to their family. Maybe it's something that they always make at Christmas, and then film it kind of like cooking show style. to bring back to the rest of the class.
I love that, Amy.
That's cute.
I've had music educators who have done that with songs. And like, what was the song
That's
that you
cool.
heard that like your like your kind of your family,
Mhm.
something your grandma's saying to your mom that your mom's saying to you. But I love that idea of doing that with food. That's great.
That's cool.
I love food.
Just don't bring me all those examples and think I'm going to sample all that food.
Well, and I'm just going to throw this in there because you said that. Like, so food is my love language too. So for my birthday, my husband made me sticky buns that were my great aunt's recipe that she used to make when we were growing up. So I totally love the idea of like finding something that your family connects with and that like has some kind of special meaning or represents something about you.
I do. I think that's cool too. And I'm going to jump in on this whole food train because my mother inherited my grandmother's house and all the things in the house. And she found my grandmother's old recipe book where she had handwritten all of these recipes. And so we were making things. My mom hadn't even eaten some of these things that my grandmother had created because it was just full of recipes. So we were making things that we've never had for Thanksgiving one year, and then we made cakes and we cut it up and we took it up to our family that was in town. And so I think that's a beautiful thing. And I think that's a great idea.
If you have kids who don't have that relationship with food, or maybe they don't have like a family connection or it's passed down, like they could come up with what would be the one that you would want to pass down. Like you start the tradition and let the kids be the initiator of that if they didn't have something already in mind.
And that ties in with the book.
And then you could make it into a cookbook, and they would have to use some math with the fractions. So
writing out the directions, get your ELA in there.
Yep.
And that ties in with the book because all the brew house, they could add recipes to that recipe book that they have with all the spells. And so it ties in perfectly with the book.
But since we're talking about food, the kids wouldn't know until you got to this part. But if you started a little snack club in your class, like a little snack club, book club while you're reading, and everybody was bringing something or could bring their own snack, they don't have to share, especially now with COVID, we can't share anything. But I think that would be cool too, to kind of snack while they read and then they figure out the significance and the connection to the book.
Builds community.
Yeah.
And I think there's opportunity to differentiate too if a kid's like, we don't have family food, because that's possible. Yeah. But like, what is something that when you think of, you're like, this is something we do every year. Maybe it's a place you go, or food. Not food. We just said not food, but you know what I'm saying? Like something that is like unique to their family that happens on an annual basis.
And also going back to what Kelly was saying earlier in terms of SEL. Really having some conversations and reading some materials around growth mindset, because Leo really, in The Power of Yet, she had some struggles to get to where she needed to go in terms of getting the spells just right. But the more that we practice, the more that we persevere, the more that we try things out, the stronger that we get. And so that's what a growth mindset is. So I think that'll be a good connection too.
And finding out how the mistakes like changed things, like when she made the love bites and they changed it was kind of like a mistake not putting things in. But like, so what came of that mistake though? What did you learn from that? And like, I still feel like she found something very useful. It created a whole different thing than what she'd originally intended. But it was still pretty kind of neat. A little overboard, but a little neat.
That's one way of saying it.
Well, we were talking a lot about like birth order and the powers that came with the birth order. And earlier I shared my quote about the things that are in you, and it's your choice to decide how you use them and what they mean. So what if there was some sort of activity where students had to predict the types of fields or professions that these girls might go into? Because just because their mom has a bakery, that's what their mom decided to do with her power. They don't have to do that. So what kind of industry could they go into where their special ability would be useful?
Isabel should so be a lawyer.
Politician.
Politician.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought that
And
would be a cool activity for kids to do.
that would be good. And really letting them look at the psychology of birth orders too, because you see a lot of patterns based on, of course, we have exceptions to the rules. We know that. But we do see a lot of patterns based on where people fall within their family.
Mhm.
Like, what if the twins had a funeral home?
Oh,
Just saying, what if?
perfect.
Economically
They'll be
solid choice.
tired. They will be tired.
Right.
They would be
They would be
tired.
tired. They would be exhausted. They would be exhausted.
Oh,
But that would be something to explore all the different careers and such. Also, Leo had to make a lot of different decisions, and there are consequences to those decisions. And when we're talking about middle school students, helping them to think about self-regulation and regulating their emotions and making the right choices, I think we can have some really great conversations about how would you approach this situation? What should you think about? Because so many times we have to have these conversations with kids, and they hadn't even thought about what could have possibly happened. And this book gives us a lot of material to have some great discussions about.
and Marlo, on that same vein, I completely agree. And I think at the end, when she talked to her mom, she realized it wasn't as bad as she thought it was going to be. Like, she could have gone to her mom like way earlier in the process, and she didn't need to fear like admitting that she needed help. And that's like another tie into what you were just saying.
Yes, every time she gets that, I can handle it, and they think that all the time, and then things snowball, and before you know it, you got a little boy, and you don't have time to be dealing with this little boy.
Literally.
Because there were so many missteps before you got the little boy.
Come on, girl.
But haven't we all been like that though? Like, we should have asked for help way, way long ago. So, yeah.
Yes. Any other instructional strategies? Really great book. A lot of great. One thing I would do. You know how she talked about looking at the cost of stress, because she talked about how Mr. Campbell had really, really aged, and that she could see the significance of it. So really, because we're always telling kids not to stress out, and then we tell adults not to stress out. We don't have much conversations with children about stress, and so then they develop and become these really stressful adults. So we need to start planting those seeds earlier with kids about how to manage your stress and really take care of yourself and your emotions. And so really looking at the cost of stress, showing these presidents before and after their term and how it just stressed them out. That's what I thought when I thought this guy, I'm like, he must have been running the country or something. Look how old he done gotten. And Leo done noticed it. So just having that conversation with them about that.
I also thought about researching not just the Brujas around the world, but what does a Bruja look in different cultures around the world? And I thought that would be interesting, because you think about just what you see in mainstream entertainment and media. Almost every culture has some sort of magical folklore, so I feel like that would be cool to watch kids kind of go through that research process.
Well, and they made a very clear distinction between a bruja and a witch. And so seeing like what those terms mean in different cultures, like how is this different, or what makes it unique to that culture?
I was thinking along something with the same lines, but then at the same time, I worried because I have seen parents, that push back, even on like Harry Potter, people can get kind of iffy anytime it's like magic and wishes, but I think that would be really cool. And also, Arisha, you brought up a good point earlier about how the vocabulary in it, especially with the Spanish, trying to figure out what exactly the Spanish meant, but then afterwards they would give you kind of like a little, what did you say? Like a little summary or whatever of what it.
They'll give you some context clues, and then for some of them, and then sometimes they just tell you what it meant because you're learning the Spanish along with Leo.
And that's for our 4th grade reading, like in 5th grade reading strategies, like decoding vocabulary words. That's always like a skill that we teach them to look for, to like see if there's, a synonym or anything like that comes out of it. So I just thought that was really a particular good book to use that example in.
I also, on a kind of a different vein too, although Arisha, I thought the same thing about you, magic in different cultures. That'd be super cool. It'd be a very interesting economics lesson on like how to run a bakery and how to choose the menu. And I think kind of in middle school is when you get more like you have different clubs and you need fundraisers and you have all this kind of stuff that you need money for. Like how powerful would that be for the students more so than the parents of the students to help build that menu and like create a snack club where maybe they sell snacks and they have to have different things in the menu, which could be from the different cultures of the people in the group. And then how much do you charge for it and how much do you need for whatever your end goal is? And because Leo was having to learn all of that stuff when she started working in the bakery at the end of the book.
Mm-hmm. And that's really cool. And also in that particular club, Kelly, everybody's going to bring their unique talents and gifts to the table. And I also like that Abuela talked about everybody has like magic. She talked about it, and to me, that was representing that each of us have our own gifts and unique talents that we bring to the table. So helping kids to think through that. Because she even talked about the daddy, and the girls were looking like, what? Daddy got powers? What? Daddy got powers? But I'm like, he ain't got no kind of powers. She talking about this within himself of what he's bringing to the table is how I got it. That was my interpretation of it.
I think he does.
You do?
I get what you're saying. I think that he does. I don't know. I haven't read the other books. I don't know if it shows up, but I think that he does have some ability. I don't know what it is, but I think he has some ability.
We will have to keep reading and find out.
We'll have to keep reading.
Have to keep reading. Well, we want to thank everybody so much for tuning into this month's edition of the Tar Heel Teachers Book Club. We read Love, Sugar, and Magic, A Dash of Trouble by Anna Meriano. We're really excited that we had this particular book, so pick up your copy if you haven't had an opportunity to. And we look forward to seeing you next month on the Tar Heel Teachers Book Club. And we're actually going to read Legend Born by Tracy Dion. We're so excited about it. So go ahead and pick up your copy. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Tar Heel Teachers Book Club.